A 35-year-old man now facing charges after a September arrest also pulled from a scheduled appearance at Phoenix Pride.
A Phoenix drag queen is in a lot of trouble right now.
You've been arrested for 2 counts of sexual conduct with a minor, class 2 felonies.
And the people that are truly against LGBT and drag have kind of hit a jackpot with this one.
Court records indicate Michael Browder met a 13-year-old who told police he posed as 18 on an online dating application. Court records indicating they later met in person.
Somebody had shared that there was a situation happening with ICE.
Court paperwork says an officer recognized Browder as, quote, a known Phoenix drag queen. Phoenix Pride issuing a statement removing Aubrey Ghalichi, Browder's drag persona, from this year's Pride Festival, saying in part, quote, the crime alleged is one that we find reprehensible and entirely contrary to what Phoenix Pride stands for. A judge set a $10,000 secured appearance bond and issued an ankle monitor if Browder made bail.
No contact with any minors. You're not to possess any weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
Well, that's the other thing. You're a married man out there on the apps like that.
The court paperwork also details an additional adult that allegedly met that teenager. We asked Phoenix police if they've made another arrest or identified that other person. They encouraged us to submit a public records request for the police report, a document which we are now awaiting.
We're going to get into it. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Like, comment, and subscribe. All right, so Phoenix Pride is coming up in like 2 weeks, I think it is. And this story just came out. One of the local drag queens is in a lot of trouble right now. But there's also a lot of debate happening online as far as the specifics of everything, because it's not as cut and dry as just an adult drag queen, which is something that the people that are against LGBT and drag in general just salivate about. Which, if you guys want to know my history with everything when it comes to the movement, LGBT, that kind of stuff, back in my day, which I know makes me sound extremely old, but back in my day, drag was just a fun thing that happened at some of the bars, and it wasn't this big political part of the movement. And I know some people would say that drag goes all the way back to Stonewall, and really it does, because that's what Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera were, even though everybody tries to say that it was trans people that did that. Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera at the time of Stonewall were actually just drag queens. And so it can be argued that drag has always been part of the political movement as far as LGBT goes. Kind of neither here nor there for this story, but at the same time does kind of make sense, because what I'm trying to say is drag just used to be a fun thing when I was younger. Drag queens were fun. And then it turned into this situation where drag queens were being used or allowing themselves to be used to be doing things like reading to children in schools and libraries. And that's where drag stopped being fun. And I've done a couple stories about it here on my channel where I feel like these drag queens are definitely overstepping. But on this situation, the argument really seems to be, because I had to read a couple of stories to actually figure out what was going on. And the reason that I say that this is a jackpot for the people that are anti-LGBT, because I'm still somewhere in the middle as far as I go. I see how the LGBT movement has been hijacked by the trans movement, not meaning transsexual, but trans being everything and queer being everything. So I understand separating the LGB from the TQ, and we can get into that in another video. In the next couple of days, I'll do a video about that. But this one, I think, is important because it brings up a lot of places for people to argue about. Because if you didn't hear that part of the story, what happened was a drag queen is accused of misconduct with a minor that was 13, but the 13-year-old had been on a dating app, which I wish they would stop referring to Grindr and Sniffies if we're talking about those two. It hasn't been verified if those are the apps they're talking about. But if they're talking about Grindr or Sniffies, those are two hookup apps. And I wish they would stop referring to them as dating apps, because some people will use them for dating, but for the most part, any gay man will tell you that those two apps specifically, Grindr and Sniffies, are specifically hookup apps. Yes, people will sometimes meet other people and use them for dating, but their main purpose is hooking up. So when you're on a hookup app and it's assumed that everybody's 18 and over, I think you do have kind of a perceived reassurance that everybody else on that app is going to be of age as well. And I'm not familiar with exactly what Grindr's age verification is at this point. I've had my Grindr account for so long that I don't even know how it works as far as that goes. But maybe that's something that needs to be looked into if there are still minors jumping on the app like that. Because it's like I told you guys, when I was younger, I would go to clubs because I had a fake ID. So I get that young people are going to sometimes be where they shouldn't be. But the big thing with this is we're talking about 13. So I don't know if this 13-year-old was just really mature looking for his age, or if it really was the kind of thing where this person that is accused of it, let's read the story and then let's go on. That's the best way for me to do it, because if not, you guys aren't going to know what's happening here. This is from an Arizona specific. This is Arizona's Family where this is. So, Phoenix drag performer accused of sexual conduct with the child he met online. Phoenix Pride removed the performer after calling allegations reprehensible. A drag performer is accused of having sexual conduct with a teen after meeting on an online meetup app, according to newly obtained court documents. Court records showed that Michael Eduardo Browder was arrested on September 16th on 2 counts of sexual conduct with a minor. Phoenix police were called out to reports of a burglary at a condo complex near 16th and Coulter Streets on June 23rd. Officers arrived and talked to a 13-year-old boy who said he had met up through an adult site known for meetups and arranged for 2 men to come to the home for sex. See, and this is something that people were bringing up because the drag queen, the drag performer, had said that it was dark in the apartment. And some people were saying that that too would lead you to believe that a person was of age. If a person has their own apartment, it would be reasonable to assume that they must be at least 18, because I do believe you have to be 18 years old to rent an apartment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what it is. So that's what some people are saying. And again, I'm just telling you guys what I'm hearing about this and what people are debating about, because this has become kind of a big situation as far as Phoenix Online goes and Phoenix LGBT goes, because this person obviously got canceled from Pride. So this is kind of the talk of Phoenix right now, and you're seeing the different things people are saying. And then some people are saying that it's not normal to hook up with somebody in that dark of a situation. And that's something I don't think that a lot of straight people understand about gay life, is that there are people in gay life that are truly into completely anonymous encounters, which I don't think is as common, even though I know it does happen in the straight community. So for a lot of straight people, this seems completely foreign to them. And as far as I go, different strokes for different folks. I've had situations where I've hooked up with people anonymously for sure. But then you get some people that are to the extreme with it, and some people will even ask you to like break into their house. And of course they don't mean do damage or anything like that, but they do want you to just kind of home invade, for lack of a better term. And I've told people before on that app regularly, because of the way I look with the tattoos and the piercings, there's certain things people will at points want from me on the rougher side of things, or for me to be more dominant, which isn't always my thing, to tell you the truth. I just have tattoos and piercings because I like them. It's not because I'm trying to be a particularly rough guy or whatever. But these are things that people assume about me. And so I've regularly had people ask me to basically do a home invasion. And I just tell them, no, you're going to come to the door. You're going to greet me. You're going to let me in. Because if you didn't know, there was a story a couple years ago where a guy's psycho ex had decided that that's what he was going to do to basically terrorize his ex, was he would meet people on Grindr, sharing the pictures, and since they had lived together, they had been in an actual relationship and he wasn't able to take that it was the end of the relationship, what he was doing was using his ex's pictures and giving them the address and saying, just go ahead and come into my place. If I put up any kind of fight, it's because I like it rough. This is an actual story that you can find online. Maybe one day I'll do the full thing for you guys, but this is an actual story. So these guys were going over there and trying to do this. And luckily the guy, if I remember correctly, didn't actually get fully assaulted because he was able to get across to the guys that, hey, this wasn't what I asked for. Somebody's posing as me. And like crisis averted as far as that goes. But what I'm getting at is this may seem very foreign to straight people, but in the gay community, this isn't really that crazy that a person would meet up in a dark circumstance. Like there are some people that will set up makeshift glory holes and then have guys come over and they're behind a sheet and the guy's on the other side and just walks in, gets serviced for lack of a better term, and leaves when they're done. So nobody knows who's on the other side of that sheet. You assume that the person's who they actually say they are, but they may be a completely different person altogether. But that's why I always have to like actually see the person. Like that's one of my things with Grindr, where some of these people will try to just do this like face down, ass up. That's another one. I'll just be waiting. That's what people will put. And it's like, all I'm saying is it's different circumstances. You guys probably found out more than you want to know, but that's what it is. And here's where people say it gets dicey. Detectives said the underage teen had posed as an 18-year-old on the app and provided his laptop, which displayed a photo of one of the involved men, whom an officer had recognized as a known drag queen. Account information on the app also matched up to Browder, court paperwork revealed. And so that's what a lot of people are debating about, because the victim has admitted that he was posing as being 18 years old. And I know a lot of people have said that you can tell the difference between a person that's 13 and a person that's 18, but there are people that look older for their age. And again, this is just what's being argued. This is not my argument right now, because really what I think about all of this is that it's very unfortunate to me that children in this day and age still feel like in order to be a part of the LGBT community, they have to be on adult hookup sites. I thought that that's one of the best things about where we are as a society, is that people don't have to go out and do what I did when I was younger to live gay life, because things are so much more open. And a lot of people are identifying as LGBT younger and younger. So to me, I think that the victim in this situation maybe needed a little more guidance, whether it was parental or through peers, as far as what would be the resources in order for them to hook up with people their own age. Because whether you're actually going to be in full relationships or you're just looking for affection and companionship, I think one of the best things about where we are as a society right now with LGBT is that young people can now live very regular lives when it comes to being gay, lesbian, bisexual, even transgender, as far as being able to go to prom with somebody, being able to be in age-appropriate relationships. Like, to me, that would have been an absolute dream when I was younger, because I wouldn't have had to deal with the baggage of the older people that I was dating when I was too young to understand why they were that messed up. And really, a lot of it got put on me, and a lot of it shaped me in negative ways and took me years to kind of undo, because I didn't understand what it was they were going through, and as a consequence, what it was I was being put through. And so that's what bothers me about this situation, is that I wish that instead of trying to push gender ideology or all the stuff the LGBTQ community is trying to push, why don't we make a push towards more well-adjusted and age-appropriate situations so that maybe future generations can be better off? I don't see a lot of the push for that. I see a lot of the push to move right past that and start with ridiculous things that we shouldn't be pushing on children, like transitioning them. That's what I see, and that's what bothers me about situations like this, is I think that the LGBTQ community is really hurting itself by continuing to try to jump steps instead of integrating as we go and being like, okay, so now we've got that situation figured out as far as LGBT youth being able to mix with other LGBT youth and at least have a chance at being in normal and well-adjusted situations. Obviously, nothing's ever going to be perfect. I mean, straight people go through all sorts of weird stuff, but I just feel like maybe that's a little more where the concentration should be rather than trying to transition people. Maybe I'm crazy, who knows? But what I was trying to get at is there are people arguing online that since this person said they were 18, that there should be some sort of consequence for them, which I kind of do agree with, but at the same time, maybe counseling would be more suitable than a consequence. I don't know. That one is weird for me because, like I said, I was out there younger than I was supposed to be. Not 13, but younger than I was supposed to be. And in a lot of cases, I didn't tell people how old I was. I outright lied to them about my age. I was also in clubs, so it was reasonable for them to assume that I was over 21 because I wasn't just going to the after hours, which, if you don't know, at that time, I don't know if it's still like that, but after hours was 18 and above. And so there was a point where I had a fake ID that said I was like 19 or something like that. And so I was going to the after hours on that when I was younger than I should have been for the after hours. And then almost immediately after, because I had gotten that ID to smoke cigarettes, a friend of mine, a straight friend of mine, had given me his birth certificate and social security card, was what it used to take to get an ID at that time. And so I used his information and got an ID so that I could buy my own cigarettes. And then almost immediately after that, I ended up dating a guy that was 23, and then I had an ID that said I was 23 because he let me use his information to get an ID. And then I broke up with him almost immediately after I got my ID. Technically, I waited out that relationship a little bit longer than I should have, just because I was waiting for my ID to come in the mail and it was going to his place. So once he brought my ID, almost like a day later, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't live like this. But I got my fake ID, and then I was out at the bars that were 21 and over. And so these guys that I would hook up with, some of them had absolutely no idea. And I don't think it would have been fair for them to get in trouble over me being where I should have been, because at what point would they have been able to truly verify my age other than if they asked to see my ID? I would have gladly shown them at that time. It wasn't my information anyway. I didn't care about sharing that information. I was 23. I dare you to push me on it. If you want to know another silly part of that story, though, after going to the bars for years, I actually had the nerve to celebrate my 21st birthday at one of the bars that I would go to all the time. It was called Harley's Club 155 West. And at that time, it was on like Central and Indian School or Camelback. It was Central and Camelback for sure. Final answer, Regis. But yeah, I would go there all the time. I had actually been 86'd out of there a couple of times before I was of age. And like the process to get back in was I had to meet with the bartender. His name was Lon, or the bar manager, I believe he was. Lon was his name. I don't know where Lon works now, but Lon was an old queen an old leather queen, because that's what Harley's was a leather and Levi bar. I was underage hanging out in a leather and Levi bar. That tells you what I was like. But at that time, it was popular for everybody to go to Harley's. But anyway, so I had been kicked out a couple of times, 86th, and then allowed back in. And then I went to celebrate my 21st birthday at that same bar. And I was living in Vegas at the time, but had come home to celebrate in Phoenix. And I remember Lon looking at my ID and he was like, "You've been coming in here for years." And I was like, "Do I still get a free shot?" I got my free shot. It was a good time. But anyway, neither here nor there. According to police, Browder was interviewed on September 16th, where he admitted to talking with someone on the app and then was let into a darkened apartment with the victim, where he admitted the two had sex. And that was the other thing. I would imagine that the reason that he had burglarized that apartment, which burglary could just be breaking in. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person stole anything. But this 13-year-old had broken into this apartment and was using that as his place. So that too is setting it up so that they have a place to actually come to. And I explained the darkened apartment part to you guys. So I know people will have feelings about that. I'm just being honest with you about the way the gay community works and the way like the anonymous situation works. However, he explained that they did not speak much, if at all, during the meetup because he stated it was dark. He claimed he was unsure of his age. He added he was under the impression that he was 18 or 19, as that is what he remembered from their conversation, according to the paperwork. Browder was booked into Maricopa County Jail on $10,000 bond. It's unclear if police are seeking the second man reportedly involved. Following the arrest, Phoenix Pride confirmed that Browder, whose stage name is Aubrey Ghalichi, has been removed from the scheduled performers list for the organization's festival scheduled later this month. Quote, "It is important to emphasize that this individual has not been convicted of a crime. Their removal is based solely on information currently available to us and our responsibility to ensure a safe and affirming environment for our community," the LGBTQ plus nonprofit said in a statement posted on social media. "The crime alleged is one we find reprehensible and entirely contrary to what Phoenix Pride stands for." And that's what the story is. And this could get worse because I ended up finding on another article, because somebody had shared that there was a situation happening with ICE. And so here's something I ended up seeing on another site where the headline is "Anti-ICE Phoenix Drag Star DACA Recipient Arrested for Sex with Minor Boy." A popular Phoenix drag star and DACA recipient was arrested for sex with a minor last month. Mikey Browder, 35, better known in the Valley by the drag persona Aubrey Ghalichi, was arrested for having sex with the 13-year-old boy. Per court records obtained by ABC 15, the 13-year-old victim posed as an 18-year-old on an online dating site. In an interview with police, Browder allegedly admitted to the crime, but on the caveat that the victim looked to be of age and the victim's apartment was too dark to discern the victim's age. Browder, a DACA recipient, worked for the Arizona Dream Act Coalition, ADAC, as a DACA coordinator. He told media outlets that he qualified for a work permit under former President Barack Obama's program for those who immigrated to America illegally as children. Browder was also an involved anti-ICE activist. In February, Browder was one of many to protest for hours at the Arizona State Capitol against mass deportations initiated by President Donald Trump. Browder immigrated illegally to the United States from Mexico when he was 10 years old with his mother, Vanessa Cherry Elizabeth Browder, who also resides in the Valley. Browder didn't apply for DACA until December 2020 when he was 30 years old, according to an interview with the AZ Mirror. Browder reported receiving an approval letter in June 2021, less than 5 months after he and 6 others with ADAC flew to Washington, D.C. to send a message to then incoming President Joe Biden and his administration. Quote, "We want immigration reform now. We've waited 8 years since Obama. He said there was going to be some kind of immigration reform for DACA recipients, and it hasn't happened yet," said Browder in an interview with Prospect. "We're hopeful that Biden does something now because a lot of us would like to vote, hopefully, in the next election in 2024. If convicted, Browder could qualify for deportation. DACA recipients must renew their status every 2 years under federal law. Disqualification for renewal extends to those who commit any misdemeanor that is an offense of domestic violence, sexual abuse or exploitation, burglary, unlawful possession or use of a firearm, drug distribution or trafficking, or driving under the influence. Additionally, those who pose a threat to national security or public safety, those who receive sentencing to time in custody for more than 90 days, or those convicted of a felony or 3 or more misdemeanors don't qualify for DACA renewal." While working with ADAC, Browder handled the advanced parole application process for DACA applicants. Browder worked closely alongside ADAC Executive Director Karina Reese de Diaz, the lucha activist and illegal immigrant benefiting from DACA, who filmed herself following then-Senator Kyrsten Sinema into a bathroom in October 2022. Browder's husband, John Andrew Covarrubias, has been a writer and producer for multiple networks, including Prime Video and Amazon Studios, Starz, the CW Network, Marvel Studios, NBC Universal, and CBS Television Studios, according to LinkedIn. Per his Facebook, Browder has worked for Paramount Studios. Him and his husband had quite a life. Well, that's the other thing. You're a married man out there on the apps like that. I don't know. This is all... Browder was scheduled to be a headline performer at Phoenix Pride Festival next week, as first reported by ABC 15. Phoenix Pride's board of directors issued a statement condemning the allegations. The organization also disputed the validity of online claims that they created a December 2023 event featuring Browder called Holiday with Queens, which they said never existed. Quote, "Phoenix Pride remains committed to creating safe, affirming, and empowering spaces for our LGBT plus community," said the organization. Phoenix Pride named Browder's drag persona, Aubrey Ghalichi, the winner of the 2022 Mayor Phil Gordon Spirit Award, though for both the 2022 and 2020 honorees for that award, the organization put a description of another LGBTQ plus activist, Adonias Arvelo Malara. Okay, so I don't know what that last part had to do with the story. I guess because this drag queen was accused of these things, they put another picture of somebody in their place, or a description of somebody else in their place. I would imagine the runner-up or whatever. But, you know, this is, like I said, a real jackpot for the people that are anti-LGBT, because here this person is really living up to what the perceived stereotype is about not only drag, but also at this point, illegal immigrants. And I know that since it's through DACA, it's a little more complicated than just being able to describe it as an illegal immigrant. But at the end of the day, DACA recipients are illegal. That's technically what it is. And that's what he was saying in the argument that he was fighting for, was some sort of solution, because even though they have a lot of the privileges of being a United States citizen, or in some ways are being treated like United States citizens, they came here illegally, and they are still technically illegal because there's been no path to citizenship. Anyway, this one is a lot, so let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys think this is just another drag queen doing what drag queens have lately become known for, which is grooming, would be what they would say? Or do you think that this person just was caught up in a bad situation where they could have made some better choices, but I don't know. I don't even know how to phrase that. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you want to see a video of me talking about an insufferable cashier at a Dollar Tree, click the video on your screen. Other than that, as always, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.